Now to Burundi, which, as you may have heard on Arise News, has made good on a threat to leave the International Criminal Court, and last Friday became the first country to quit. The ICC has been roundly criticized by African countries who argue that it unfairly targets African political actors for prosecution. So Burundi subsequently began the year-long process of withdrawing, a move analysts suggest was partly motivated by a preliminary investigation into political violence, which left hundreds of people dead and more than 300,000 refugees scattered in countries around Burundi. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by Emery P Igiraneza from the NGO Burundi Solidarity International. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. So did Burundi quit the ICC because of unfair targeting of Africans, or because it feared the hand of justice and wanted to avoid prosecution for the many people killed in the country's ongoing political violence following President Nkurunziza's third-term extension?
I think the latter is true. You know, Burundi is, as you know, have been, suffering from impunity for a good number of years. And now this is not a surprise to anyone. It's something that they had planned even before they did so. So as of 27th of October, they have left the International Criminal Court as a member, just because there was already an investigation, into the crimes against humanity that might have been committed in Burundi, and the government officials have been named, as having, participated in those crimes. So this is the major reasons they are deciding to do so. Obviously, we know there is this general understanding in African leadership that, the ICC is targeting mostly African leaders. But again, we know that there are African leaders that have been, targeted, if you might use the word. However, there is also a reality that Africans are suffering, because of the lack of good leadership, and that ends up, suffering from crimes such as genocide and all.
There was, of course, the big fear in Bujumbura, which appeared to be that there was a plot afoot by Western powers to use the ICC to effect regime change in Burundi.
Well, again, that's really an argument that is fabricated by the regime in Bujumbura. We know that the government is saying that crimes have been committed by the opposition, and the opposition is pointing the finger to the government. Now, here we have an International Criminal Court with the intention of investigating, obviously, to see what is the right, account here. And the government is refusing by just withdrawing its membership. Obviously, that means not cooperating to the investigation. So if they were of goodwill, if they wanted to know who really committed these crimes, then they would be willing to let this.
And I suppose what is interesting is that report from the UN points out high-ranking people in Burundi as perpetrators of that political violence.
And that's a fact. People who have been tortured or killed, who went missing, all these were in the hands of presidential police, which is really a kind of, police that is directly commanded from the presidency. And when these people go missing, obviously, the president himself is accountable for their lives. And that's why a report that mentions high-ranking officers in his government is not really, coming as a peace settler. They just don't want to hear that.
Now, the UN Commission on Human Rights has called on the ICC, or had called on the ICC, to investigate possible crimes against humanity committed in Burundi. What's going to happen to that investigation now that Burundi has pulled out of the ICC?
According to the Article 127, which is the article that Burundi used to withdraw, the same article also gives a room to the ICC to investigate crimes that have been committed prior to Burundi withdrawing from the ICC. So that means that all the crimes that actually the ICC was intending to investigate, they can investigate it. And also, it doesn't really give any protection to the government, to the crimes that will be committed now onward, because again, the United Nations Security Council can still instruct the ICC to investigate those crimes if the government will continue to commit other crimes.
It would be difficult, though, without the cooperation of the Burundi government.
Very true. It has been even difficult, even prior to Burundi leaving, because they didn't cooperate. That for sure will happen. But again, impunity is something that is like a cancer in Africa. But we all hope that one day we will end up really getting a solution to that. People cannot continue to commit crimes thinking that, they will just get away with it.
What do ordinary people in Burundi make of all of this? I mean, is there a sense that the authorities want to protect themselves by withdrawing from the ICC?
I tell you, Charles, Burundi is one of the poorest countries on earth, and the worries of the local population is not about international politics or something like that. If they can get bread daily, then they'll be happy. Unfortunately, they are not even getting that bread. This is coming to just add waste on the waste, and Burundians are suffering.
Beyond what is happening specifically in Burundi, you're a journalist of some repute. You sort of a public relations officer for an international NGO. Is it your sense that the debate about the ICC and Africa is something real, not imagined, and that the ICC has a lot of questions to answer in that regard?
As you might know, obviously, as a journalist yourself, you know that you can never find any perfect institution in the world. There are shortcomings of every organization you can take. It's true that I think ICC should also concentrate on other parts of the world as a part of its mandate. However, we have now the evidences that if you go and try to interview Africans, millions of them, they will not be worried about ICC. It's only leaders who are worried. And most of these leaders who are worried are leaders who are more likely to be actually investigated for the crimes they have done.
Very interesting. Emery, thank you very much indeed. Emery Igiraneza from the NGO Burundi Solidarity International.
My pleasure.